never forget my interview with legendary bodybuilder Mighty Mike Quinn at his parents' house in South Florida some 7 years ago. This is Christian Duke. You're watching Strength Addicts on all social media platforms, powered by TitanMedicalCenter.com, your go-to source for all the amazing therapies, #1 in patient care, and Amazon's Fit Mag, celebrate the female physique. I remember that back in those days, I wasn't doing contest coverage. And I don't know if I ever should have done contest coverage, to be honest with you, because I was doing interviews that I loved doing, Ron Love, Mighty Mike Quinn, Al Q Gurley. I mean, interviews that were just really, really good. And I remember the interview with Mike. It took forever. It really did, because at the time, Mike was kind of like flirting with the idea of a comeback. He had a book deal. His agent, I'm not going to mention his agent's name, but it was a pretty big level agent, a guy that has been behind books and movie deals. And he wanted to do a documentary about Mike, because Mike was the bad boy of bodybuilding. That wasn't a title he came up with. The magazines came up with the title. And it was something that sort of sparked the interest of Vince McMahon at the WBF. And they very aggressively pursued Mike. And anytime Mike appeared on the cover of a magazine, it sold out. I don't care if it was in the United States, whether it was in Western Europe, in Japan, wherever it was, Latin America, it sold out. People could not get enough of the Mighty Quinn. And he placed well. He's a guy that went pro twice. He had to go pro twice, because he went pro in the AAU, then it became the NPC, then he had to go pro again. He didn't complain. This guy was from Brockton, Massachusetts, the city of champions. Now, if you know anything about Brockton, especially during the days that Mike, it still is what it is today. But when Mike grew up there, it was a tough town. You don't go to Brockton unless you're a tough individual. You don't go to, nobody goes to Brockton to visit. Okay, let's just put that out there. But, he was training with his dad. And if you watch my interview right here at Strength Addicts, I'll put it at the end of this video. Mike said that his dad would beat up the drug dealers. Whenever they would come up to him and offer him gear, his dad would beat them up. His dad didn't want him to use any gear. And he was like, and there's nothing wrong with gear, but at the time he was like 16 or 17 years old. He was in high school. He was playing football. He didn't need to be on that stuff. Natural testosterone levels at that age, they're through the roof. Mike was playing football, and he was benching like 400 pounds naturally. So, I mean, he was a strong guy, and he trained to failure in the gym. When I did this interview with him, his dad wasn't wearing a shirt. I think it was like 70 or something like that, 65, 70. And he was shredded. I mean, he was shredded. I mean, you'd think the guy just came out of a photo shoot. That was his dad. And his mom, she was super cool, and she brought us like refreshments. And I remember we did it sort of like in this patio. We did the interview there, and she brought a fan, and then she brought like a towel, like kind of like a damp towel for me, because we were outside. And I wanted to do it outside because the lighting was really good. There wasn't any noise. I'm not going to go tell his parents to turn the TV off or whatever. It was just a really, really good spot to do it. There was a nice breeze, but it was still hot. Understand that it was summer, South Florida. That day there wasn't a lot of humidity, but it was hot. I remember it. And the full interview went over an hour long, because my hand I was holding, I didn't have the AX43 or the AX33. I had an earlier model Sony camcorder, actually, that I bought from Gail Auerbach when I very, very first got started doing contest coverage in 2013. It was a great camera. And but my hand was really starting to like get achy, because it went over an hour. And it was all one clip. There were no cuts. Now, the finished interview is about 46 minutes long. And I'm sure I've got the full interview somewhere, but I'm telling you, the 15 or so minutes that was removed literally could have had me sued 150 million different ways. I mean, he said some stuff that honestly implicated officials, implicated supplement company owners, implicated magazine owners, implicated competitors. It was bad. So, and what's crazy is it could have very well been true. But I just, it was, and what was put out to this day, I mean, it's got like, I think, like 70,000 views, is heralded. My friend Kevin Gretsch of evolutionofbodybuilding.net said it's the best Mike Quinn interview he's ever seen, and he used it on his article. And Kevin didn't have to say that to me, but I certainly appreciate it. And it was pretty bare knuckle interview, and that's after it was heavily edited. But I'll just never forget it. It was, and then after that, we did some follow-up little videos at like Bill Wilmore shows, and I think maybe at the Southern States we might have caught up again. I think I might have run into him at a gym once or twice. I mean, from then to 2019, when I last saw him, I ran into him a few times. I ran into his girlfriend as well a couple times with him, and I never met Kelly, who is his sister, and who he was prepping for a while. But the interview with her at RX Muscle is available, and I believe she might have turned pro. She didn't turn pro. She was definitely top tier NPC national level competitor. But I do think she might have gone pro. But he was so proud of her, and he was prepping her, and he had a lot of expertise, let me tell you. And so does his dad. I mean, Kelly comes from a bodybuilding family. And the one thing that always pained me about Mike is he never retired. That's kind of why he was like flirting with the comeback, is because he never actually retired. He never was able to get on stage and give a farewell speech. He was never able to do that one last pose like presentation. He never had the opportunity to do that, because what happened with him was, when he left the IFBB, he went to the WBF. He competed at the World Championships in 91 and then in 92, which, if you watch the interview, he hated that year because everybody was drug tested, although he believes Gary Stridham was not, but whatever. And so he competed at both of those, and he was prepping for the 93 World Championships when Vince pulled the plug, and that was it for the WBF. He still got paid for 93, which I think was making something along the lines of $350,000. Put $350,000 in 1992 or 93, and look at what it is today. It's like almost $1 million, I would think, or at least pretty damn close to $750,000. So once Vince took the win from the WBF sales, there really was no point for Mike to compete again, at least not for a while, because he was making so much money that why was he going to do a show for $10,000? You know what I mean? He owned gyms, he had other businesses. He was enjoying life. Gary Stridham went and started a t-shirt company. I mean, like, these guys weren't looking to go back to the IFBB anyways, because they also thought that there was going to be like, kind of a black cloud over their heads, you know what I mean? And then Mike had that unfortunate encounter with Chris Pacello, who was a sort of an associate of the Colombo family, turned state witness. He got hit in the face with a bottle. It was just a bad, bad situation. So, he never really got to retire, but he was always in the mix. Then he kind of resurfaced at a bunch of interviews, like the one with StrengthAddicts. He did MD, he did RX. He helped Kelly, and but then he just never was able to do the comeback because he was dealing with some health issues. And honestly though, he was such a driving force in bodybuilding and loved the sport so much and helped so many people and was so real, and actually did a great job personal training the last few years of his life as well. That again, I just, when I found out from Kevin Gretsch from evolutionofbodybuilding.net, who wrote a great article, by the way, and I'll link it down below, and I also wrote an article for ironmagazine.com, it just broke my heart. It broke my heart. And I just want to send my deepest and sincerest condolences to Mike and his entire family, all of his friends, and all of his fans, myself included, on the passing of a true legend in the sport of bodybuilding. I love you, Mighty Mike Quinn, my man.